Hey guys, I've been working with some people who have scoliosis for on and off for several years now. I just want to share a little bit of information that I've come up with and found from other places to help kind of get you started on the right path. So first thing is we're looking at functional versus structural. Functional would be where I have a muscle tension imbalance that's pulling me out. Structural would be where I have a bone deformity that's formed around that. So now I might have low-viewed profile, a trapezoidal shape to the vertebrae or something like that, change in the rib structure. So those would be the structural. That we're not going to be able to do as much about. There are some things we can look at. If it's gotten early enough, you may be able to change the structural. Functionally, though, what we're looking at is I like to think of a wheel, and so like a bicycle wheel, if I tighten a spoke, I'm going to pull the rim out of alignment. So I'm tightening a spoke, pulling the rim out of alignment. So what I need to do is look at this. One of the problems we see a lot of times with people, and this happens with lower back pain, things like that too, is this gets pulled out of alignment and I stretch both sides and I end up going further out of alignment. So what we want to do is make sure we get one-sided when we're trying to solve these problems. So figuring out where things are tight, moving into it. The first thing in scoliosis is to pay attention to your postural habits. So the postural habits would be things like if I'm laying on my side reading a book and I'm leaning into that scoliosis, I'm going to continually make it worse. Let's try leaning on the other side. Actually use that as something to help correct that. The second thing we'll look into is getting into some corrective exercises. So doing some mobility, like laying over the top of something, and it will enhance the curve in the direction that I want it to move. And then doing some other things. We need to strengthen to be able to hold those positions. So if I did like an isometric where I reach up on one side, down on the other, I'm going to create a curve for this side and help stabilize that. If I hold that, then I can start to stabilize and strengthen those positions. So these are kind of some of the basics. And then we get into doing more unilateral exercises. So maybe I need to work through a range of motion, pulling to create that strength where I've got a lack of strength on one side, and also something where I need to develop the movement and create the movement in the spine. More oftentimes the spinal movement's lacking once we start into that scoliosis. So we're trying to create that spinal movement around those places that are kind of locked up, and then through the unilateral exercises, and then also developing spinal movement patterns. So being able to take the spine through ranges of motion. The other thing we're looking at is spinal movement patterns. And so as we go into spinal movement patterns, that can be, if we look at like taking the lower rib cage through, for example, a hula hoop type pattern of moving the lower rib cage, a lot of times we'll find that there's kind of a disconnect where you can't make movements in certain directions. And so starting to develop some of those spinal movement patterns. And so this is kind of a little bit of a path to start developing our way out of that as much as possible. So in some cases, we can get pretty close or full recovery from some types of scoliosis. And in other cases, what we can do is just increase the comfort and then decrease the amount of stress that's moving that direction. So just depending on where we're at with that at the time. But there's some things to think about. I hope that helps. Have a great day.